Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are going full throttle with just 8 days left, revving up turnout in a razor-tight race where even the slightest of margins could matter. Both candidates holding mega rallies in unlikely states, Harris taking to bright red Texas for an event that featured Beyonce, and Donald Trump firing up deep blue New York City, bringing his campaign's closing argument to a jam-packed Madison Square Garden.
I'm asking you to be excited about the future of our country again. And I will never apologize for defending America. Kamala Harris has shattered our middle class. She cast the deciding votes that launched the worst inflation in the history of our country. The day I take the oath of office, the migrant invasion of our country ends. Kamala broke it, but I will fix it.
To say the least, there was a lot of love in the room for the former president, but Democrats and the media were not big fans of the event, with some following Hillary Clinton's lead that the rally was reminiscent of a Nazi rally that was held in Madison Square Garden back in the 1930s.
It is absolutely something that is intended to and is fanning the fuel of trying to divide our country.
There's a direct parallel to a big rally that happened in the mid-1930s at Madison Square Garden.
This was a hate rally. These are mini January 6 rallies.
How did we get here where a stadium of people come to hate?
Yesterday's Trump rally from hell.
Vile, racist, sexist insults dominated Donald Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden.
Okay, Greg Gutfeld, haven't heard from you today, and I'm dying to know what you're thinking.
Well, I mean, the big question for me is, if you are confident and you think you're going to win, do you call people Nazis? That's, to me, that is an assumption that you think you're going to lose. It's a sign of desperation. What is it if it's not? I mean, if they actually do believe that these thousands of decent people that are just coming there for a good time are Nazis, if you believe that, then you're a coward for not doing anything about it. And if these Nazis win, then what are you going to do? You know what would be helpful? Tell us who isn't a Nazi, right? Be specific. You know, I voted Saturday for Trump. Am I a Nazi? Yes. If you support Israel, who has warm relations for Trump, who actually named a city after Trump, is Israel now Hitler Germany? I mean, that's the like-minded radicals at Columbia would agree with you. So if you demand people to take a side, then you should actually take a side too. I think that, like, there's always a risk of being in a pirate ship, but the first principle is the First Amendment. So a guy tells a joke. This is what kills me. You don't have to laugh at a joke to know it's a joke, right? But the joke is so different than the smearing of tens of thousands of people as Nazis. This outrage over a joke after you go after thousands of people that are there for a good time. And I think it's because the Dems aren't having a good time. They are incapable of having a good time because they've rejected all of the shared activities that bring people together, except for looting. But if, you know, they hate religion, they think patriotism is silly, holidays are oppressive, recreation is white privilege, better not work out. So their shared experience now is simply outrage. They can't do fun. That is why when they looked at this, they just get angry because they can't do it. They can't do it. So they go off on like a joke. To me, the irony of a joke like that is that the libs don't know about news until it first starts as a joke. They had no idea about illegal immigration. They didn't care about illegal until you make a joke about it. Men participating in women's sports, you start making fun of it, then they call you transphobic, then they find out that it's real. Inmates getting sex changes, right? You're paying for it, that's a joke. And then you find out, oh, it's real. I mean, now people know about Puerto Rico having a huge trash crisis. You know who knew that first? AOC's grandmother. Nobody cared, not even her.
It reminds me of, remember Sherrod, who used to come on Red Eye?
Yeah.
I went to one of his comedy seller shows one time. He tells this joke. I thought it was hysterical, and hardly anybody else laughed. And he said, "It's not funny if you don't know stuff." which was I don't know why I'm walking down memory lane. I want to play
Shout
for
out
you.
To Sherrod, though.
Yeah, hey Sherrod. I want to play for Jesse. This is Jonathan Karl from ABC on his observations.
Madison Square Garden was packed. Trump has created a movement. There is no doubt. I cannot think of another Republican figure of my lifetime who could have come into a Democratic city like New York and put together anything like that.
So I think that some pundits and maybe some in the media were getting confused with him coming to New York, to Madison Square Garden, that he was going to flip New York. And maybe some seats are going to help. Maybe he will change it. But this was a homecoming and a chance for big international exposure.
I can't think of another Fox News host who would come into this building wearing a burnt orange mock turtleneck sweatshirt.
Brand new.
I mean, this thing is stunning to the audience. I hope it looks as good as it is on set here, because wow.
Do you like it or you
wow.
hate it?
I'm impressed. Greg's taking a fashion risk and pulling it off. So McDonald's, Rogan, and MSG, that's what you call a strong close. And he's creating these cultural moments that are breaking through that Kamala is capable of doing. And the media is terrified because they're not able to control Donald Trump. He's doing this all outside of their control. And now he's got a shot at winning the popular vote.
Yeah.
You look at his latest numbers, he's just a hair shy of 50%. He's never even come close to that before. So if he does win the popular vote and get in there, he will have a strong governing mandate, if it's this diverse coalition that we expect it to be, that the Democrats are going to have to respect. He's going to force them to respect that mandate. Now, Sunday was a love fest. I know some of the nicest couples who I know were there. I don't know why they're friends with me, but they were there, and they were just enthralled at the enthusiasm. The rage was on TV. The rage was not at the Garden. The rage was on TV because, as like Greg said, they're jealous. They can't control him. They're angry because they've thrown everything at this guy, and the more they throw at him, the grander the coalition gets, the stronger he gets. And demographically, you saw minimum wage workers to billionaires, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, men, women. I saw Jewish flags next to MAGA Muslims. You don't see that at a Kamala Harris event, ever. He's bringing all sorts of people together. And you don't hear a lot of crowd size cracks anymore, do you? Remember a couple weeks ago, Kamala making fun of the crowd size? You don't really see that much anymore. You see a growing movement. She doesn't have a movement. This is a growing common sense movement. I just would hope that people could maybe come along for the ride instead of running against common sense. The names on the roster were insane. You have Musk, Tucker, RFK, Vivek, Tulsi Vance, Dr. Phil, Dana White, Hulk Hogan, and Melania. So if Trump's the star, you got guys that can distribute the basketball, hit threes, rebound. It is a winning team. And I'm not looking at you, Jessica.
We will look at you, Jessica, and
Thank you.
take it wherever you want, because I look at this and think the fascist closing argument that Kamala Harris was trying does not seem to be working or sticking, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, there's evidence in the polling, certainly, that's come out in the last 24 to 48 hours that it is working for her. And in terms of early voting as well, Gen Z voting is almost at the 2020 levels, and we're not even through early voting. So there's a lot of good signs for all of that. And I don't want to sit up here and diminish the joy that thousands of people had last night going to see Donald Trump at that rally. I was talking to a friend who's a reporter who was in the room who said it's full of incredibly nice, generous people who were there to have a good time. And I think that that's important. I completely separate the people who support Donald Trump from things that I think about the character of Donald Trump or how his policies might affect the country. But I think that it is absolutely crazy to try to make this about not having a good sense of humor about Tony Hinchcliffe's joke. So the Bulwark just reported before we got. I love that. That's my favorite.
Bulwark. Go ahead.
Okay, Mark Caputo, who is a reputable reporter. It doesn't matter. Either way, this has been confirmed that he originally was going to do a joke where he called Kamala the C word, and the campaign saw that, and they asked him to take it out, which he complied with. And that indicates that they saw his joke list. Now, if this was a joke saying Puerto Rico is a floating island of garbage, and he ad-libbed it, that's fine. But maybe
is he
if
a
you
roast
saw,
comic? Are you a fan of roast? I remember you loving the Tom Brady roast.
I was about to say, I in fact thought Hinchcliffe was one of the funnier people at Tom Brady's roast. Mm-hmm. But a comedy show and a closing message political rally are very different. And you want to do no harm with 8 days left to go. And it's very clear that harm was done. And you know that because Republicans came out right away flipping out about this. Rick Scott posting, Anthony D'Esposito, who is a congressman in Suffolk County, immediately said, absolutely not to this. Puerto Ricans are great. He's Puerto Rican himself. Marco Rubio came out. He was trying to defend the larger message, but he said Puerto Ricans are good people. And the Kamala Harris campaign is reporting that they haven't seen something breakthrough like this comment has yet in the campaign. They're talking
but you
about
realize
Bunny.
This is to cover up the fact that they're calling everybody Nazis.
No, well,
come
also,
on.
No, it's not. You want to talk about that because that makes us seem insane.
You did not even address that. The fact that your side is calling everybody Hitler and Nazis, and you're choosing to talk about a joke.
No,
this is better than that.
No. Every show I say, I don't want to hear about Hitler unless we're talking about Hitler. This was not about 1930s Germany. But you did have Stephen Miller stand up there and say, America is for Americans only. Okay. That is the kind of rhetoric that does echo the 1930s.
Well,
and that's
you just,
wait, who's America for then,
Who should
Jessica?
we be for? The rest of the world or us? America first or last?
It's not about first or last.
Yes.
It's about sending a xenophobic message out to the world. Go ahead and
the judge was there. You had front row seat. Tell us more.
Yeah, I was there. I was there for 6.5 hours.
Oh, my God.
It started with a national anthem, one of the most beautiful versions of the national anthem I've ever heard.
Mary Billman's great.
Yes, a black opera singer. She's fabulous. The whole event was nothing but energized. The place lit up based upon the people there. Everyone was there. It was a microcosm of the United States. Black, white, young, old, rich, poor, Asian, Hispanic, black. It didn't matter. You saw Israeli flags. There was someone there from the Holocaust who survived the Holocaust. This was so far from what the Democrats want America to believe it to be. And Donald Trump came out and he gave the most optimistic message. He said, I'm positive about the future for America. He said, what I'm interested in making sure that we have tax breaks for caregivers, which I expect Kamala to copy in the very near future.
Literally,
but it
she came out with it 2 weeks
something
ago.
it was just like Jonathan Karl said. It was unbelievable that Donald Trump, they were packed to the gills. They were 10 deep going into the Garden in New York City. And no fights, no nothing. It was just joyous. And the amazing part of it is that, when they want to say that this was a Nazi rally, I mean, they insulted everyone at that place. And everyone who was in the Garden was thrilled with the exceptional speakers, Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy. Jesse, you mentioned who they were, Dana White. I mean, these are incredible, substantial people. But no, the Democrats want to make it something that it really wasn't. But in the end, when you think about it, their version of democracy is picking a woman who's not gotten one vote, but was chosen by a machine to run for president. But we are the fascists. And finally, as it relates to that podcast, the Trump campaign came right out and said that does not reflect our views or the campaign's views. I mean, they did it in record time. They were not happy with it.
Okay, coming up is... Sorry.
No.
Okay, good.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.